industrialization, we had a robust financial sector to support investments, and then there was continuity of policy making. And we gave private sector the lead role. Then 1973-74, as mentioned by the Minister of Industrialization, we had a wholesale nationalization of industries, financial institutions. And then we faced two Afghan wars, 1979 and then the war on terror in 2001. Both these wars did not belong to us. Somehow or the other, we jumped into those two wars. Between 1974 and 73 to 2018, 45 years have been wasted as far as the economic development of Pakistan is concerned. We may have seen some bright spots, but in general everything deteriorated, and we don't even figure out in the top 20 countries in Asia. So, fast forward, the PTI government under Prime Minister Imran Khan has embarked upon revitalizing the economy. After dealing with 4 major issues since they came into power, number 1, a large current account deficit. Number 2, COVID. Number 3, Afghanistan situation. And number 4, this international commodity super cycle. We have been dealing with this, but despite that, I think the economy has started growing. Last year's growth was 5.57%, and we believe that we are on a trajectory to at least grow between 4.5% to 5% this year as well. So the government is taking steps for a wholesale planning process. A planning process to grow our economy on the basis of our strengths. We have to understand that we cannot just do everything. We have to look at, what strengths we have and what are our strengths. We have 60% of our population is under the age of 30. So we can have population dividend. We have a diversified geographic landscape, starting from the Himalayas and Karakorums down to the Arabian Sea. A large pool of non-resident Pakistanis. People don't give them credit. But if they were not there and sending us the money, we wouldn't have survived for long. And I think a strategic location which is good for trade and commerce. So what are we doing now? So our emphasis is on improving our savings rate. Our saving rate is around 14-15%. That can only support around 4% growth in an economy on a sustainable basis. Whenever we try to increase our growth rate beyond 4%, go to 5.5%, we have to borrow. Not only we have to borrow, we also have to borrow dollars, because the imports go up and we basically have to go to IMF. So we have to increase our savings rate. And to start with, we have to increase our revenues of the government by using technology whether it is broadening of, the tax base, or increasing penetration into the retail sector, or improving, our, customs. I think all that has to be done, because we, with a 10% or 10.5% tax to GDP ratio, we cannot have sustainable growth. So it has to go to, move towards 20%. We have to have a high emphasis on industrialization in general and exports in particular. In this respect, not only we have to increase the value addition in traditional products, we have to add new products. We have to add new geographies. Diversity in products, diversity in geography. But more importantly, there are two areas where we need to have emphasis. I think the Deputy High Commissioner mentioned one of them, and which is IT, and the other is tourism. You have one of the most beautiful, geography in the north, and we have not developed it. I know of countries like Turkey started from zero, and in no time they reached $30 billion of, revenues from tourism. So exports, industrialization and exports in general, but tourism, IT in particular. Here I must say that there are some strategic gaps in our exports strategy. Our exports are actually all private businesses who are conducting them, which is that we do not have a single dollar of FDI into our exports. They're all family businesses. And the family businesses, the minute they disintegrate, obviously, with time, there's transition. Transition leads into fragmentation. And fragmentation of industry means that you don't have scale, you don't have, obviously, the ability to add value. So that is why your export industry, if you look at each one of them, over a period of time has fragmented. There is no scale. Your average spindlage today may be 30,000. Average spindlage, in India is probably over 100,000. In China is 200,000 spindles. So I think unless you do not consolidate, and we had a problem, and this is also a problem with our industry, that we only had a liquidation law. We did not have Chapter 11. We did not have a structuring law. We now have a Corporate Restructuring Act, Chapter 11, that gives us the ability to restructure our industry, consolidate our industry, so that we can make it, obviously we can create value addition. The second main thing was, as I said, exports, emphasis on exports. And one of the reasons why we do not have sustainable growth is also that our exports are around 8.5% of our GDP, rebased, and our imports are in excess of 18.5%, it's closer to 20%. So you have a gap of around $40 billion there. Now, we are thankful to the non-resident Pakistanis. They chip in around $32 billion, and plus the RDA gives another $3 to $4 billion. That we are surviving. But we have to narrow this gap. And this, to me, one of the areas which will help us is IT. The third thing which we have to improve is productivity. Productivity not only in industry but also in agriculture. We have not improved productivity on our agriculture, and as the Minister of Industry was saying, that we add 5,000 people every year, 5 million people every year, and if you look at the production of our major crops, I think for the last 6, 7 years, 8 years, they have been same. I think it's only last year that we grew the major crops in a big way, And now we are putting a lot of emphasis increasing productivity in agriculture, increasing the production. But we have to do that. And if we don't, I think we will never have agriculture security and sustainability in our